Hey guys, it's Lauren here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It has been a while since I've done one of these videos, but I'm back because Haikyuu, the first film, is already out in Japan. It'll come to international theater soon, fingers crossed, and I have been obsessed and fallen in love all over again. In case you don't already know, Haikyuu is one of my favorite animes of all time. It has everything that I want in a story. Excellent side characters, protagonist who's very grounded in realism yet still very inspiring. Excellent world building, despite it being in like a real world. Like clearly the author really loves volleyball or has done a lot of research to make sure everything that he has written is very realistic and is grounded in reality, because there are other sports anime in which characters perhaps do things that are out of bounds and completely beyond comprehension. Haikyuu is very much still an anime that is grounded in reality but still manages to inspire so many people. And you can see that just by the fact that like Japanese volleyball has increased an exponential amount since Haikyuu has been released into the pages. So it's just an overall really inspiring anime that literally changed my life. I started watching it in 2020 because of the pandemic, and it was also a pivotal moment of development for me because I was going into college, and there's just so much amazing things that the show has done for me. So I went to take a moment and went to commemorate that by making a video about some inspirational Haikyuu quotes. I've really been obsessed with the Haikyuu universe lately. I've been rereading the manga. There are so many lessons intertwined within the story, not just in terms of volleyball, not just in terms of sports, but in terms of life. I think it's one of those shows that actually does a good job managing to convey a message and still have it be an impact beyond just like the basic facetious meaning of what a lesson can be. One thing specifically that I really love about Haikyuu, of course, is the fact that there's excellent side characters, and I want to focus on the lessons from the characters that are usually underscored in other stories, and that is the older, more experienced characters. As you can see in Haikyuu, there is a lot of screen time committed towards the side characters, those that are watching from the stands, literally sidelined, and they oftentimes say some of the most empowering things for the characters of the story, and they basically verbalize the lessons that we were seeing being discovered by the main characters in real time. The side characters specifically I'm talking about, not just any of the characters that stay in the stands, but specifically the coaches within this universe. For example, Coach Takeda Sensei, Coach Ukai, Old Man Ukai, the Nekama coach. They have said some of the most inspiring quotes within this story, and the reason they have a lot of impact is because we know, for one, that they have experienced the thing themselves, because they are all people that have been people that throw themselves full-heartedly within their career. I was going to say volleyball in general, but then I remember Takeda Sensei actually did not know much about volleyball, which makes his own personal journey into becoming a respected coach within the Haikyuu universe all the more inspiring, because despite not knowing much about it, he really cared about the kids. He's a great character overall. But yeah, they all have a good experience with volleyball itself, therefore we could take their quotes with a bit more seriousness. Not only that, we see them actually guiding the younger characters in the story in a way that is far more substantial than you would see in most shonen anime. A lot of times we give senseis or older characters a lot more credit because they are super powerful, or because they are just like the coldest characters, or because of literally a myriad of reasons that don't really have much to do with them actually being that good of a teacher, especially in sports anime. I feel like in sports anime the focus is always on the exceptionally talented or exceptionally spirited MC, but the coaches themselves don't really like add too much to the story other than being a spectator and just saying things that you would expect any other spectator to say. For example, like Kuroko no Basket, they kind of have the spectator element as well, and they pull that off to a certain degree, but Haikyuu does it to a different levels. The characters not only just say something incredibly powerful, but they also manage to not just tell but show it. As part of the reason their lessons have so much impact is because not only are the lessons told to you, but you've seen them build up steadily throughout the series. Each lesson in Haikyuu you have seen at least been expressed within one character of the story. So I really just want to get into these characters, the lessons they've said, why they are important, and basically what I have taken from them. I'll start with, and I'm sorry to take this from Yamaguchi, but this is a quote actually said by old coach Yukai that Yamaguchi ends up witnessing and understanding in real time. To be good is to be free.
鵜飼元監督が昔よく言ってたんだって。常禅寺を見てるとこういう感じかなって思う。楽しむ。ナイスレシーブ。強さ。
And this is something that Yamaguchi says after watching the Jozenji match and seeing the fact that they're having such a ball playing the sport, even though they kind of suck in a certain aspect because they're all playing in a very haphazard, very athletic kind of way that takes advantage of their inherent instincts, but not necessarily having cultivated any skills to back up those instincts. Yamaguchi himself, at the moment, he is struggling through not having a jump float server, not really having a reason to be on the court yet because all the other first years are, and he desires to be on the same playing field as them. However, after seeing Jozenji, he understands a quote that Coach Uka Ukai had said earlier, which was something along the lines of, if you have good skill, then that means the competition is more fun, which means to be good is to be free. And we see that obviously with Jozenji having a ball, but we also see that earlier on in terms of characters like Hinata, who eventually, after managing to get better, slightly better at receives and also being able to understand Kageyama, is able to compete on the court and therefore have more fun on the court. We see it even with like Nishinoya, who was introduced by this point in the series and who always manages to be upbeat and cheerful, and that is in part because despite the fact that he was suspended even from the school, he still put in the work in order to be really good at volleyball, in order to improve his skills, in order to make sure an incident like what happened with Asti doesn't happen again. Previously, it was hard for them to have a good time because they were constantly being shut down and they were called the wingless crows. However, within season 1, you see the characters start to get a little bit more excited, have a little bit more energy and a little bit more of a Hinata-like attitude because they're all suddenly getting good together. They're building up the cogs of the machine, they're building up their artillery, they're increasingly becoming better at the sport, and therefore they have more options and they have the ability to go further than they ever would have been before. Nowadays, if I realize I'm not having fun in something that I really actually do want to have fun in, it's probably just because I haven't cultivated the skills in order to be good at it, and it's something just to consider whenever you make a step throughout your life. Like, it'll become fun once you become good at it. Part of the fun, honestly, is becoming good at it. Take advantage, enjoy the learning process, and then eventually you'll be able to learn and grow and have more fun because you've set a good foundation. So thank you to Coach Ukai and to Yamaguchi. I won't forget you. Eat a proper meal.
走ったりとか飛んだりとか筋肉に負荷がかかれば筋繊維が切れる。それを飯食って修復する。そうやって筋肉がつく。そうやって強くなる。
This one was really huge for me. I will not lie to you. It's not really something that's emphasized that much. To eat a proper meal. It's something that Coach Ukai actually says in some of the earlier episodes. So they work out a lot. They're obviously trying their best in their best effort. However, they're not necessarily being overly conscious of like what they're eating, what time they go home. But Coach Ukai reminds them that before he's even Coach Ukai, he obviously was the clerk at the store, and Kurasuno and the boys themselves would always go there in order to get food, in order to revitalize their muscles so that way they could play another day. So even though they weren't consciously aware of the fact that they were like refueling themselves, Coach Ukai literally made sure to put it into words. Make sure to eat a proper meal. And that is one scene in which we see it executed, but he also says it again at the end of season 1 after they lose against Abajosai in a really heartbreaking loss. Eating a proper meal is one of the first things that Coach Ukai says to them. It's one of his first lines, and then he brings them back to a restaurant afterwards in order to eat and bring back their muscles.
食え。少しずつ強くなれ。
Honestly, this is one of the most impactful scenes to me in Haikyuu. I think it says something a lot about how despite losing, that doesn't mean you should punish yourself. That doesn't mean you should constantly mull over like the things that you did wrong or the mistakes that you made or what you could have done differently. Sometimes all you have to do is like rest and then reconsider. You need to give yourself that space, that in-between space to really rest, to make your brain rest as well, because your brain is also a muscle, to really consider how to move forward and not just like consider to the point of thinking, I'm going to stop here. And part of the thing that makes you move forward is fuel. Fuel is food. Food is one of the things that helps you move forward. We see that executed like after the Abajosai game. It's one of those really hard lessons that like we hear in the beginning that we might have like brushed off, but then we really see it concretely how important it is later on, because after that proper meal they have at the end of season 1, season 2, they're back with a vengeance. They're ready to practice more with more intent. They're ready to acquire new skills. We really see how important it is that eating that meal was for Kurasuno. And it's really important to me, especially just because to a certain extent, cultures really idolize or glorify the culture of not getting enough sleep, of not eating enough, of kind of running yourself ragged. To a certain extent, people are expected to brag about that kind of stuff. Haikyuu put it into perspective, for me at least, that that's not really something you should brag about. And that, in fact, the most important thing to do when you are hurried, when you're rushed, when you have so much to do, is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you're further able to do that in the future. There are truly various kinds of strength. This is another one from the old Coach Ukai. It's the battle of concepts, essentially. I think it happens within that episode, within that chapter, in which Kurasuno is going against Shiratorizawa, and people are surprised that they even got as far as to the 5th set. They would have thought that Shiratorizawa, being the powerhouse that it is, would quickly crush Kurasuno and humble them, and they would just like go back to the little hole in which they flew out of. However, that's not what actually happens. The coach for Shiratorizawa, Lashido, he wants to deny Hinata and his kind of strength because he was previously denied before. However, Coach Ukai was the kind of coach in which he knew that there were different kinds of strength, and he was dedicated to cultivating those different kinds of strength.
だからこそ今、多彩な攻撃や守備が生まれている。強さとは実に多彩。
So the strength of Karasuno is being a carnivore, of cultivating new skills, of beating the odds despite everything stacked against him. Shori Torizawa's strength was basically the essential basic strength of volleyball, which is being tall, strong, being powerful, basic set tools. It basically shows the fact that like you don't necessarily have to be the base set of strength for a certain curriculum in order to excel in it. And we see that not only with Hinata being as short as he is, we see that with Kenma, who is a setter, but he isn't necessarily as tall or as agile as other setters. We see it with Hoshiomi as well. So we really do see the ways in which different kind of strengths manage to thrive, not only in volleyball, but also in other parts of the story and other parts of life. And this is in fact due to the fact that they don't operate alone. Another big lesson of Haikyuu: volleyball is a sport in which you are always looking up. I think it's the last line of the Coach Ukai that was in season 3, and it's when Karasuno is feeling really downtrodden and they are tired, they are exhausted, they are flabbergasted by Ushijima's strength. Because if you're looking down, you end up losing the bigger picture. Volleyball is a sport where you're always looking up. It's basically saying be optimistic. Even when the odds are against you, always look on the bright side of things. And we see that obviously within the show through Hinata, who's basically the personified crow, the personified version of their statement to fly, to always look up. It's Karasuno's entire motto. They literally have beaten so many different odds that people have never thought they would reach before because they were labeled as the flightless crows. Yeah, volleyball is a sport where you always look up. It's a sport where you can't allow yourself to look down. Otherwise, you'll never improve. That's not only for volleyball, it's for life. That one's pretty obvious. Thank you, Coach Ukai, for that. It's not a miracle, it's a footstall.
稀に長く、そして多分苦しいことの方が多い時間の中で、ごく稀にこういう一本がある。
This is actually from the coach of the youth team that Kageyama participated in season 4. And it's something he says after seeing Hinata actually do a proper receive for the first time against Aranep and Inurazaki. Bro, I loved it. For one, that scene is hilarious because it looks like he's looking up and it looks like he's seeing Jesus or some shit like that. But I think even the coach himself in the moment has been reminded of something that he himself had forgotten. Miracles aren't actually miracles. And that's something that's very, very hard to consider. It's also something that aligns with Kita's speech that we also see during that game about monsters and versus like regular people. Do monsters or geniuses actually exist to the extent that we think? Are we not respecting them by calling them monsters or geniuses? Are we disrespecting miracles by calling them a miracle? Like, are they in fact accumulation of effort and strive and strength and blood and sweat that you've put into something? Are miracles really just the fruits of our labor? It's not just random luck, it's the fruits of our labor. That's essentially what the coach is saying within that scene. We obviously see that being executed by the fact that everything that Hinata does within that match is very intentional. He's always at a spot in which the ball might end up. I mean, that's all due to the fact that he's been putting effort into getting better at that. So that one miracle is the accumulation, in fact, of his efforts. And that's something that the coach acknowledges and something in turn to remember, because instead of saying like, oh, like this person or this celebrity or like whatever, they got a lucky break because of whatever reason. It may be a lucky break, but it also may just in fact be the accumulation of a lot of the effort that they've put in for years, and therefore it will carry them further on into the future and they'll continue to improve, and then you'll realize it was not in fact a miracle, it was the fruits of their labor. So yeah, I mean, obviously there are miracles, like some random bursts of fate, but in order to be prepared for those miracles, or in order to like have a higher chance of those miracles occurring, it's you putting the effort and the time into something. That is another lesson in which I have taken personally, and that has also personally changed my life. Try, fail, try again. This is honestly a quote that you hear outside of Haikyuu, but it's definitely something you see executed a lot within the story, and it's said actually by Coach Nekomata. He says it during one of the matches we actually have not seen animated yet. We said through Nekoma, they're really adaptable to Karasuno on the court. They're really willing to try different defensive measures because Karasuno's constantly throwing something new at them. However, we also, again, this is something we see a lot through our protagonist, Hinata. Hinata is constantly trying to figure out ways he could get better at the sports that he loves. That involves obviously trying different things for his receives, for his spikes, like opening his eyes, doing the split step, from doing all these different techniques that he's just picked up along the way. Hinata is constantly trying new things in order to get better at the old things. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I used to be a kind of person where I would literally just like try something. If it didn't work, I'd be like, well, that's it. I wouldn't try a different method, because just because one method doesn't work doesn't mean another method won't work, doesn't mean that it can never work. Haikyuu just opens your perspective in that kind of way. This too is volleyball. And this quote is especially prevalent for most things. It could be applied to anything. And I think it's something that we haven't actually seen witnessed in any character up until that point, other than maybe Kageyama. We see a little bit of him before this match that they do against Komendai. He's the kind of person who files his nails in order to be better at setting. He's the kind of person that makes sure he's constantly like having nutritious foods, makes sure he changes so he doesn't catch a cold. He's very meticulous about everything he does in his life. And it's something that Hinata notices right before the match and points out, and therefore makes this lesson become full circle, because then we see Hinata fall because he doesn't take account of that lesson. Not only are you supposed to do the thing, but you're supposed to make sure you do the other things to be able to do the thing. Like you want to write, for example, but have you been world building? Have you been reading fantasy? Have you been doing the things in which will help you then write? All of those small things that aren't necessarily just doing the thing, they are also doing the thing because they will help you do the thing in the long run. I feel like I've said thing many times in this, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. And obviously we see that in Haikyuu through Kageyama, and we'll see it actually in Hinata as he goes through Brazil, as he goes to be part of the Japan national team. So yeah, those are all the quotes. I just want to thank you guys as always for watching. If you have any quotes that particularly stuck to you from the older coaches, feel free to drop them down below. We could gush about it together. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.